Welcome to the Left, Right, Forward video podcast show. The show where you'll hear amazing interviews from people that share their views from the left, views from the right, but always with the mindset of moving us forward. These podcasts are designed to educate, inform, and inspire its audience with relevant information from the past and present. We welcome now the host of the show, Ambassador Delano Lewis.
This is the Left, Right, Forward show, and I'm your host, Ambassador Delano Lewis. This is a show with a purpose, an interview show with a purpose to educate, to inform, to inspire, and to motivate. So we'll have views from the left, maybe views from the right, maybe views from the center, but we're always moving forward. The Left, Right, Forward show. Welcome. I'm excited today because I have a protege and mentee and one person I'm extremely proud of. He is the district attorney for Wyandotte County in Kansas City, Kansas, and this is my hometown. So I want you to welcome an esteemed lawyer, district attorney, Mark Dupree. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Ambassador. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today and to represent your hometown, which is my hometown, Wyandotte County, also known as the Dot. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. My first question was, I knew you from your law school days at Washburn, but take me back. You did grow up in Wyandotte County as well?
I did. I grew up in Wyandotte County, was born and raised here right off of 13th Street. And my parents were local pastors in the inner city and working hard, both in ministry and on the job, trying to provide for us. And, we didn't have a lot of money. I tell folks all the time, my parents didn't have degrees, but they knew how to pray a whole lot. And so they took us to church and they made us pray and learn really biblical principles and faith to help our community and to strive to really utilize biblical principles to help the community that we grew up in. But I got to tell you, we were so broke when we moved from 13th Street to 18th Street. I thought we had moved on up, and literally we hadn't. It was still, it
was still in the county.
That was my upbringing.
Well, that's incredible. You had siblings as well growing up?
I did. I do. I have, it was 6 of us biologically, but, as parents were pastors, they adopted 3 more. So there was up to 9 of us in the house at one time. And, as the youngest of everybody, my brothers and sisters really made it a point to make sure I knew, 1, that I was the youngest, and 2, to make sure that they helped keep me on the right page, right? And kept me in line to do what my parents had trained us and taught us and raised us to do, and try to do our best to stay on the right side of the law, God, as well as to do all that I could to help those around me. And so that was a family environment.
Well, you've done a fantastic job. You said you grew up 13th Street, moved to 18th Street. I was around the 10th Street area, and I graduated from Sumner High School. What schools did you attend in Wyandotte County?
I went to Wyandotte High School. I graduated from Wyandotte. I went to Vance Elementary, which is not in existence anymore, and then Coronado Middle School, which has been changed to Gloria Willis. And so, but Wyandotte is still hanging on strong. Hopefully that name will never change there. And so.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, when I grew up in the 40s and 50s, blacks couldn't go to Wyandotte High School. And Sumner was the only high school that blacks could attend up until the 54 decision. So, things have changed, and I think they've obviously changed for the better, because you're the first African-American elected county attorney for Wyandotte County. Is that right?
That is correct. The first to ever come here as a DA, and I'm excited to carry that mantle, to carry that role. But it wasn't until I was halfway in the campaign that I realized I would be the first.
Well, that's incredible. Did you have this view in growing up that you wanted to become a lawyer? Was that an aspiration?
You know, I tell you, it wasn't an aspiration until after I got to high school. In my freshman year, I had the honor of meeting one of your friends, Judge Cordell Meeks Jr.
Right.
And I had the pleasure of shadowing him, and that changed my entire trajectory of where I thought I wanted to go. I had never met a lawyer. I had never met a Black lawyer, a Black judge. And meeting him at 14 let me know that as a Black American, I could be more than what the criminal justice said that I could do in the criminal justice system, which stereotypically speaking was being a criminal. And so now I've been exposed at that point to a Black lawyer, a Black judge, and at that point it was, if he can do it, then I can too. And so from 14 on up, my mind was made up. I was going to be a lawyer no matter what. And then later, I became a DA. Now that wasn't anywhere in the vision at all.
But you set out on that track. I am sorry to interrupt you. You set out on that track in any event. Tell me about the campaigns. You have this is your second term for DA?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And how have those campaigns been?
Well, the campaigns were, I tell you what, every time a campaign is over, I'm happy. You know, I gotta tell you, the first campaign, it was extremely exciting, while yet being difficult. It was a lot of work, but you know, biblically speaking, the Bible says faith without works is dead. And so my mind was always, if you want to accomplish something, you got to do the work. And Wyandotte County had never had a district attorney's office or district attorney campaign. It was always just handed off. I'm the third district attorney for Wyandotte County in its existence as district attorney since the 70s. And the first person was there for 32 years. And then my predecessor was there for 12 years consecutively, but he was in the office for 25 years. And so the citizens had never been given a choice. And so that first campaign, the citizens were excited because they get to actually choose rather than being told. And it was exciting. It was very enthusiastic, and we got to lay out, you know, holistic prosecution and being smart on crime rather than being all about convictions. And the second election was the exact same way. The folks got a taste of what it means to get out of the mindset of simply being tough on crime and focus on being smart on crime and dealing with the underlying issues of crime and people who are getting into the system. And they overwhelmingly elected me again.
That's fantastic. Are these partisan elections, Mark?
Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. They are. And so we ran as Democrats in both of my elections. The opponent have been a Democrat who ran. But I tell folks all the time, regardless of your party, you have to focus on principle. And we have folks with same party lines, but different principles. And we just did a good job as really laying out the principles that we ran on. And the party came out to put us back in office.
That's fantastic. Congratulations to you on the re-election. I want to go back a bit because we share so many things in common. We're talking to Mark Dupree. He's the county attorney for Wyandotte County, the district attorney. And he's a Kansan who grew up in the county. And you went to Washburn. Where did you go to undergrad?
I went to the University of Kansas. Went to KU, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, and then went on to Washburn Law School.
Well, tell me about Washburn. That's where we first met. Your experiences in Washburn. I graduated in '63, and you were much, much later. But tell me about your experiences at Washburn.
Yeah, Ambassador, you beat me just by a few years, and
a real few. Go ahead.
My experience at Washburn was thrilling. It was extremely hands-on. I tell folks all the time, you know, I know folks love their law school, but my law school, not only did I love it, but I appreciate it. Coming from Wyandotte High School, the truth is I did not have a lot of the foundations concerning English and grammar and things down. I struggled a lot. And so I made it through my undergrad, and I got there, and then I got to law school, and then I was tested. And there were some questions that I didn't know the answer to. And so my first year I struggled, and my professors and deans, they pulled me out and said, listen, we need to really focus in on what is your underlying issue. And that, I recall, directly that summer of my first year, I had professors for the entire summer. I was not in school, but that entire summer I had deans and professors who sat down with me at Starbucks at least 3 times a week to go over the fundamentals of grammar and the fundamentals of English and the fundamentals that I had struggled with concerning legal writing. And it really gave me a boost to where I should be, and then where I ultimately became, and then getting involved in becoming the president of the law school before I got out of there, and pushing to extend our recruitment to bring in more African Americans and more Latinos, and sending the law school to the Black student unions in the undergrad, and to the Big 12 Council on Black student governing all across the country. And ultimately, which is that recruitment push, brought my wife, Chanel, to Washburn Law School, where I then can say that I then got her and made her my wife. Washburn's been good to me, and they continue to do great things. And I tried my best I continue to try my best to stay connected and help where I can.
Well, kudos to you, and kudos to Washburn. Number one, that you knew that you had those issues and challenges, and you were about to solve them and to resolve them, and Washburn was there to help. And I must say, a plug for the law school. They have their first woman and a woman of color as the dean, Carla Pratt. So Washburn is moving on, and I'm very proud. But I'm going to shift in and ask you some very tough questions about law enforcement, because if we can be serious for a moment, we're in a climate where law enforcement is on the front pages. The shootings in Atlanta, the shootings in Colorado, and police violence, et cetera, particularly with George Floyd several months back and some others. What is your thoughts about police immunity and being held accountable? How do you approach that?
When I first got here to the DA's office, the practice was that for officer-involved shootings that result in death, the agency that did the shooting did the investigation. And to me, that is a huge problem. As we look to the 21st century policing by the Obama administration, best practices show that for transparency and accountability and community relation building, it needs to be an outside agency, an independent investigation to deal with these type of situations. And so that was one of the first things that I did immediately, which is sat down with our law enforcement agencies here in Wyandotte and got together a understanding that my office would no longer take cases of officer-involved shootings if the agency that's involved did the investigation. Because as much integrity as law enforcement has, there is a presumption that if it is done by someone in the house, then there's some home cooking happening. And I think that those are some of the same problems that we have across the country, where if we don't have independent agencies to do these investigations, to look and to hold these individuals who are not holding themselves out in the right way with integrity and with respect for the community, then we need to hold them to the carpet and force them to deal with those folks, right? And when we have these officers who are shooting folks and not being held accountable, it does no good for community relations, it does no good for the agency, and it does no good for the criminal justice system. I think that those officers need to be held accountable, and I think they need to be held accountable publicly so that the community can regain some type of trust with law enforcement.
Well, that's an excellent answer, and I appreciate your commitment to that. You've been doing some very interesting things in Wyandotte County. I understand you've set up a community integrity unit. Tell the viewers and listeners what that means.
What that is a unit that is specifically for two things. One, looking at wrong cases, potentially wrongful conviction cases, where individuals are able to write into our office, fill out an application, and let us know where they believe that they were wrongfully convicted and why. And our office in that unit will specifically, we have 2 investigators, certified law enforcement officers, as well as one of our senior district attorneys whose sole job is to investigate those cases. And where there are wrongful convictions, we do our darndest to correct them. And so far, we've had 2. One right before the Conviction and Community Integrity Unit was created. A young man who has spent 23 years in prison for a double homicide that he did not commit. He was released. And then recently, a young man, or rather older man, who has since passed away, spent 12 years in prison for 2 murders he didn't commit. And then what it also does, it allows community to express their concerns and complaints of local law enforcement to that unit. So again, an outside agency, thus my office, can investigate those complaints of potential police brutality and wrongdoings, so that the community can see that there's no home cooking. If they did wrong, I'm going to hold them accountable. And if it's not a crime, I will still make sure that the chief of police or whatever agency knows that this is the finding of the DA's office, and they probably should not have their badge.
Well, that's incredible. So you can say that your relationships with the community ongoing has been a pretty good one. Explain the demographics of the community. What's the racial makeup of Wyandotte County?
So it's around a third. And if you get down to percentages, white folks make up about the high 30s. Black folks come in with the high 20s, and Latinos are around the same. And so we are one of the most diverse communities in the nation. I think amongst only 3 other communities in the nation that has the amount of diversity, ethnic diversity, that we have in our community. And with that, I think it's important that law enforcement, the district attorney's office, our courts, and our community leaders not only reflect the community that we serve, but we make sure that we serve the community, all of the community, not just one specific community.
Well, thank you for that. We're getting close to our ending time. We've been talking to Mark Dupree, who's the district attorney twice elected in Wyandotte County in Kansas City, Kansas. I'm very proud, a good friend, a mentee, and protege. I want to ask you one more question. You've also done some innovative thing with community leaders. It's a program called BOLD, Brilliant, Outstanding Leaders Determined to Make a Difference. Tell our viewers about that.
Well, my earlier story about Judge Meeks at 14 being able to meet him, that exposed me to a reality of what I knew nothing about. And so with that, we have carried that mantra, that thought process of exposing not only our young people, but our community members who may have never been able to interact with people in leadership, people in the law enforcement in a positive way. And so through that BOLD initiative, we partner with churches, schools, and community organizations to bring in interns to allow them to shadow. And then every person in my office, all 26 attorneys, have to go out of this office and meet with the community, encourage the community, lecture the community. So, because here's the bottom line: you cannot police or serve a community that you're not a part of and that you don't know. And so being bold is a part of making this community better.
That's fantastic. Some very innovative and creative things to develop police community relations. That's outstanding. Last question, Mark. If you would give some advice to men and women of color who are thinking about law enforcement or law or careers in government, what advice would you give them today?
I would tell them to stay focused. Do not be distracted by the everyday situations. We must continue to focus on the big picture. We did not get to a place where I, as the first African-American elected DA in the state, just popped up, but I stand on shoulders of those such as you, yourself, Ambassador, and many others who have come before me to pave the way, to prepare the way, to fight the battles and the struggles and get into the positions of power so that we can open the door for others and pull others in. And so the big picture, the focus has to be bettering our community, which means getting our perspective, our diversity, and our understanding in the room. We have to get in the room, and then when we get there, be bold, don't be silent.
This is incredible. Thank you so much, Mark. You are a real role model, not only for people of color, but for all people. I've been speaking to Mark Dupree, District Attorney, re-elected in Wyandotte County, the first African-American DA in my hometown. I'm so proud of you. Thanks for the good work, and keep moving forward.
Thank you, sir, and be blessed.
Saying, we've been listening, and you have been listening and viewing Left, Right, Forward Show, an interview show with a purpose. The purpose is to motivate, to inspire, to educate. And we have been listening to a role model in that regard who answered all those things. Mark Dupree, District Attorney of Wyandotte County. He's a role model on police-community relations. He has innovative programs in bringing his community together and understanding law enforcement and also keeping the community safe. So thanks for listening. Left, Right, Forward. Views from the left, views from the right, views from the center. But we're always moving forward. Until next time, Godspeed.